Why do we sit here being silent, watching our leaders turn into tyrants? Have they forgotten which side they're fighting for? Checks and balances set aside and rule of laws, youth and ours, and Constitution openly ignored. Man, I'm not okay. Think we are being played. Is it time for right and left to join a greater cause? Man, I'm not okay. The rich claim to be victimized just to attack the marginalized. Is 1% really worth more than all the sick and poor? Always preaching about fellowship while planning their dictatorship. Now we've seen how all of this plays out before. Man, I'm not okay. Think we are being played. Time for you and I to join our country's call. Man, I'm not okay. Ever wonder all the mystery? Why they whitewash our history? Keep dividing is their plan. All in all, such a scam. Algorithm very sly, only used to spread the lies. Politicians know well, hate is simple to upsell. Man, I'm not okay. Think we are being played. Time for you and I to join our country's call.
We are not okay. America is not okay, and we all know that. Former Congressman Joe Walsh, this is the Social Contract with Joe Walsh. Let's figure out how to get okay together. I'm in
where are you?
Part of the country. I'm
Where are
about
you?
3.5 hours south of you. We need to meet somewhere and have a drink.
Are you in
halfway.
Bend?
No.
You near Bend?
I'm 20 minutes south of the Oregon border in California.
Oh, you're in California. Nice. Northern California. Dude,
Probably
I was
4
in Bend.
hours,
We
huh?
camped in Bend this weekend. I know you mentioned Bend as a potential landing spot. You
Bend is
would
cool.
love it there, dude. I hope you end up in Bend. It'd be great.
Where did you go? Did you go into town?
We camped. We went to Tumalo State
Cool.
Park and we were camping over there. I gotta say, dude, now
What?
we went to town. We hung out in town. My wife was in heaven because it's like a mix of like Oregonian wilderness, which we've come to love now moving here, and Brooklyn style Pilates studios and like all the stuff that she loved. She was in heaven. It was fun camping. I'm like slowly picking up some man skills camping as I came to Oregon with very few, to be honest. I now own a truck. I know how to hunt a little bit. I can set up a campsite and barbecue. It's coming along.
See, that's what's cool about you is, and you and I share this. You're becoming a gun guy. You're an outdoors guy, but you're a hardcore communist. I'm too old to learn how to fucking camp. I can't camp, Xander.
Yeah, you're out on that. It's
Oh.
all right. Glamping's in vogue. Hey, I gotta say, this thing showing up, as soon as we were done with our last conversation, I thought of 15 things I wanted to talk about in our next conversation. I love that we have this on this weekly cadence. I'm so fired up about this.
By the way, my friend, I replayed I'm going to do this every week. I replayed our conversation on my daily podcast on Thursday. People freaking love the conversation.
It's so, you know what I like about it? I was thinking about this all week. When I'm thinking about what to ask you, sometimes in the political theater, when you have guys like us from across the spectrum, we debate on the solution. What do you think about universal health care? What do you think about XYZ, right? And what I'm really interested in is talking about the problem my solution is trying to solve and figuring out what your solutions are and maybe where there's a meeting of the minds. And I wanted to talk about two things today, because I think if I'm trying to solve two things with our democracy, these are probably them.
Okay.
A minimum level of freedom and stability that people need to be participants in our democracy, right? A minimum level of freedom and stability that people need, and where you define that and how you solve for that, right? We all know there's a certain amount of toiling that people could be in where they can't think about civics, right? You go to Maslow's hierarchy. They can't think about civics. They can't attend their town hall with a representative. They can't organize their neighbors into voting for XYZ, or at least we see, I shouldn't say can't, because people even, it's incredible sometimes the things people overcome to participate, but we know it leads to less involvement in civic life. And then the other thing I really want to ask you about is maximum coercive ability. You think about Elon Musk single-handedly buying Twitter and changing the algorithm to favor his outcome, which unfortunately is aligned with Trump's outcomes in many ways. But I'll start at the former.
And by the way, Xander,
yeah.
as you start, because you're our leader and I'm your sidekick, and I love being your sidekick. Let's again.
I don't know about that.
Set the table for everybody who's joining us. I am at heart a libertarian, free market guy. That's how I describe myself. At heart, how would you describe yourself?
I just hate poverty, and I think it's the root of a lot of our issues. So I am someone who is tackling that. I believe in government interventions. I believe in social programs. I believe in creating a safety net that is, I don't even like the term safety net. It's like a capability net, like trying to get people to a place where they can participate and be involved in our system and get the outcomes we want. So it would definitely, like, if you're going to put a label on me, it would definitely be democratic socialist. I'm by no way, I'm not putting Stalin on my wall back here. It's democratic's the important part, but democratic socialist.
I agree. As we get into your show today, I just want everybody who's joining us to understand you and I have a fucking gas together. But if we're going to label ourselves, I come from the right over there. You come from the left over there. Proceed.
Yeah. I'm left of Gandhi, as I say sometimes, but I actually named the live today a libertarian and a socialist walk into a bar. I think that's the title, which I think we should keep as a part 2. All right. So let's dive into this first question. Let me give you some context for this. Because I think a lot of my beliefs come from my personal story. I was someone who had a lot of wonderful things happen in my childhood, but some very rough things, right? My father was murdered. My uncle who helped raise me after that became addicted to drugs and overdosed. I went to a rough public school where I had kind of guns on me at least 2 times. I ended up dropping out of high school. At one point, I had a 0.0 GPA in high school. And then because of who murdered my father was murdered by the inheritor of the DuPont fortune. He's the wealthiest person to ever be convicted of murder in the United States. I inherited money, and I inherited stability and freedom. Let's call it stability, freedom, and opportunity. And I became a valedictorian in college. I started a couple tech startups that were acquired. And then later on, I got to kind of have my midlife crisis early, right? I got to think about what's my meaning, what's my purpose, what do I want to be spending my time on, and got increasingly involved in social justice and democracy work. And I think a lot of my bend in general is, my thesis is, I don't think I'm particularly impressive by default. I think I'm the beneficiary of a set of circumstances, stability, opportunity, the folks that I've gotten to learn from, brilliance through osmosis. And I wonder, I have a deep belief in human potential in that setting, in that Maslow's hierarchy of being kind of in that rung of feeling safe, feeling stable, feeling like you have opportunity. And I think a high functioning democracy is dependent on people being in that rung, is dependent in them feeling like they can also think about civics and whatnot. And I wonder, coming from your perspective, one, just a commentary on that thesis in general, like, where you find it to be true, where you don't. And then to the extent that you do feel like there is some sort of minimum level of stability, how do we achieve that through your kind of thought process?
First off, and I don't like to casually just gloss over your story. And we won't drill down today, but fuck you, we're going to devote a show to drilling down on your story. Because, Xander, it's fascinating. I have a very unique political perspective because I went from the Tea Party to the Democratic Party in like 12 years. That's weird. You've had an unbelievably unique background story. Personal story. that I think you need to talk more about. And as we get into this, as you become more public and you talk about what you want to do, reform solutions, your story's got to be a big part of it. So I appreciate you sharing that, and I want everyone to hear more.
Thanks,
Look,
Joe.
I was raised probably the opposite of you. You know, Mr. White bread, suburban country club Republican family of 9 kids. Um, uh, and I can't explain
9's a
why.
crazy number. You're one of 9, Joe.
7
How are
boys,
the other
2
8?
girls.
Are the other 8 like you?
No. I'm
Okay.
the odd one. I'm the weird one. I'm the
All
only one that is public and political. They're all normal, decent people. I'm not.
Yeah.
But from the earliest age, I've always been drawn to individual freedom, period. And individual freedom has pretty much dictated my philosophy politically. So when we talk about a minimum standard of living or a minimum standard of stability so that you can be free, inherently, that's not freedom. What you're getting at, and let's discuss this, is government benefits. Like you believe, maybe I believe, maybe a bunch of people believe the government should ensure that everybody, has a livable wage. Everybody has 3 meals a day. Everybody has a roof over their head. And if everybody had those things, you're probably right. They then would be more free to contemplate defending democracy, the rule of law, everything.
Mm-hmm.
But when you, in my mind, when you say everybody has to have a roof over their head and a livable wage, that's not freedom to me. That's a government benefit, because to do that, Xander, to guarantee everyone a minimum standard of stability, you're going to have to take from me and from you and from others to provide that. We have a very different notion of freedom in this country as opposed to our, as you know, our European allies.
Sure.
Our freedoms here are negative freedoms, individual freedoms that we have that protect us from government.
I was just about to bring up negative freedoms and positive freedoms. Tim Snyder.
I love it. Tim Snyder's great. So, and maybe, Xander, and I'll close here and turn it back to you. Maybe this country that you and I both love, maybe we're moving toward positive freedoms. I abhor the notion, but I acknowledge I may be in the minority, if that makes sense.
Sometimes I think about this conversation as it's almost binary versus different tools in the toolkit if you're trying to solve for different problems. And I think oftentimes when we talk about, taking from certain folks or kind of forcing contribution, there was a point in time not too long ago, and kind of every point before that, where you kind of needed everyone throwing in all the time to make sure you had enough food and housing. We were all essentially farmers, and if you weren't a farmer, you built cabins or you did some other, what we call during COVID essential work, right? That was the whole society did essential work, and still, you'd have a famine once every 50 years and wipe out half your crew. And so it was just critical that desire to make sure everyone's contributing at max all the time. Otherwise you're in trouble. When I think about go ahead, Joe, you were going to say something.
No, continue.
When I think about the needs of a future country, right? Like the 21st century goals for us, we can produce what we need with relatively little human labor at this point. Our ag is like 1%, housing's 1%. But when you think about who's going to win the 21st century, I mean, Joe, what do you think about what's important for Americans to be partaking in the 21st century?
So this is where my philosophy of individual freedom, government generally stay out. And Xander, I've never argued for government's got no role. Never. I do believe government has a role to play to provide for those who cannot provide for themselves. End of story. But as you said, as this world changes, as AI may dramatically change our world, I don't know, you're smarter on this stuff than I am. could we be in a place in 3 or 4 or 5 years where middle and upper middle class, middle manager types are out of work, not doing anything? Oh my
We're
God.
seeing it already.
Yeah. Does that then mean that government like must write them a check every month if there's no work for them? Fascinating questions are coming up.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep going with that. I think there's certainly, who knows if middle management is or isn't going to exist eventually, but certainly we're going to be displaced in waves. But when I get out of the kind of like the negative thinking of like what will happen to people and how to solve for that, which I think is honestly oftentimes the democratic language, which is not the most exciting framework for like what's going on in the future. When I think about what people need to be good at, it just takes a lot of investment. Like if you are going to be a participant in the innovation that's going to keep America competitive or in the lead technologically, it's going to take a lot of training for you to be a participant in that, whether you're an entrepreneur or you are, you know, a technologist that's like supporting those efforts. When you think about the complexity of the information environment that we're living in and the need to understand not just, you know, reading and writing as like previous education taught you, but like literally like fallacies. How do you spot if you think about the rise of Trump, a lot of it is the inability to spot fallacies by like a lay person. Ability to go, oh, that's a red herring. You know, that's a straw man argument. Like, I'm not buying that. I know exactly what that is. You think about the amount of like information overload that's coming at folks. That takes a lot of investment. The civic participation, civic innovation we're going to need. Guys like you and like what you've been doing for a long time, whether we agree or not, you know, trying to champion new ideas, trying to help people understand new challenges. We're going to need a lot of that. And so when I think about those things and what's going to make us thrive in the future, it is not so much we need all hands on deck all the time, making sure we have enough food and water and housing. It is, can we get people to a credentialed enough to be a participant in the things that will help us be strong moving forward?
Well, and that's the rub. Then what then does government have to do to provide that floor? And you and I would agree at every transition economically in our history, from the farm to the industrial revolution, on and on and on, government's always played a role in helping to transition to the next workforce.
It's like the J curve, right? In like individual investment, they call it a J curve. You got to invest down here till the market can you take it and run with it.
I just believe the beauty and magic of this thing that we have, though, is capitalism, is the market generally leading. I'll make 2 points. There's no system known to man that has delivered more people from poverty, up and out of poverty around the world than capitalism. The other thing, Xander, is, and you and I could probably talk for 2 hours about this, and I don't mean to be provocative. I've never cared about income inequality. I don't want to lead us astray. To me, I could give a fuck about income inequality. I want people to have opportunity. I don't give a damn if there are a gazillion billionaires in this country. I just want to increase opportunity for everyone to move up. I don't care if the disparity in income is ever great. But to answer your thread, as we move to this next phase, whatever it is, yes, government has a role. But I really think, again, the market, entrepreneurs, capitalism needs to lead the way. I think that's where we've always succeeded. But respond to that.
Well, as I said, I think about these things kind of in stages versus competitive. Like I think the innovation that capitalism drove from, called the industrial age on, which drove down the cost of production of the things we need in life, right? Like that, I think fantastic. I think it's, in many ways, it was a fantastic system for that. And I think we're moving into an era where we are allowing that to be the only system. And it was not only on the production side producing great outputs, but also
my young
on
friend,
yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you think we're reaching a unique phase where capitalism, the market, entrepreneurs shouldn't be the lead driver?
I don't know if it shouldn't be the lead driver. I don't think survival should be reliant on it. I think we are exiting a stage where we are innovating and supporting the reduction in cost of things we need to survive. And we're involved in a lot of other jobs and a lot of other industries that aren't all that important. I think that's why the market's becoming wavier, because people can turn off the faucet in a lot of their expenses, right? It's creating more volatility for us. I think whether we like it or not, AI and other innovations are going to displace a lot of us.
Yeah.
And so honestly, I don't think it's either, or I almost think it's like a, it's a stack. It's just a stack. And I think the investment in stability in education is higher now from the public sector than it was in previous times, because it's going to take a lot to make sure people are okay through these cycles, and to make sure they can be participants in the things we need them to be participants in. I think we didn't adjust, basically. I think we adopted a system that got really good at providing food and housing, et cetera, for us. And that system is now doing many, many other things, and we are totally reliant on that system. And I think we can, what's the agriculture word? You like, you plant it and you harvest it. You can harvest the gains from capitalism to now automate food distribution, food production, distribution, a base level of housing that would have been impossible to guarantee before. You talked about giving money away. I'm actually more cynical about that than using the gains from capitalism that we've gathered in our production capacity and using them to create more guarantees in society so people can then participate. And again, I reflect on my own experience here, where I was not a value add to society at a certain point in my life, and then had the stability that allowed me to be a value add to society. Sorry, that was a long-winded monologue. That's kind of winding, but this is a new convo.
Xander, this is why this is so fucking cool. Because you and I at one level think utterly alike. Philosophically, we're fundamentally different. And I'm older than you, good and bad. But that's why you and I, this is always a fascinating conversation. Help me understand, to get to everybody at a certain stability so that they can then participate. Like what does that look like to you?
Totally. So I've priced out some of this stuff, like guaranteeing, let's say we create a baseline of guaranteed healthy fruit, veg, bread, beans. No one in America doesn't have access to
bread, beans, right.
A base level. That's the worst you can do. Now, that doesn't mean capitalism doesn't exist. There's not restaurants you want to go to, et cetera. What it does mean, though, is probably places like McDonald's have a little more competition in terms of like not just being the Hunger Games solution to, if you're starving, where do you go for some food? We can produce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're talking about some structure where, and again, the government is driving this, where every American is guaranteed a good fruit, veggie, red beans, whatever, a couple meals like that a day.
Say it's at every grocery store has in section that's like gov provided fruits.
Okay.
And when you're doing your grocery experience, you can get, that's now, we've taken some commodities that survival is dependent on off the table. Now, everything else still exists. Vitamin water is still out there. Coconut water is still out there. I'm not saying you get everything. I think about coercion a lot. I guess I'm giving Americans the ability to tell McDonald's, look, the risk of me not getting this job is not starvation. I think in some ways, Joe, I'm kind of jumping around here. In some ways,
that's okay.
If we stabilize people, we can probably get rid of some things that you don't like minimum wage and whatnot, because people just have the ability to say no. And they're like, you're going to have to pull me as a partner into your business. So, but let's start. Go ahead, Joe, actually. Drive a little bit.
No, just to add, and again, by the way, you're also good for me because you're so agile in your head. And when at my age, Xander, you kind of slow down a little bit in your head.
Yeah, I'll give you 10 more years before Alzheimer's.
No, but it's so good for me to interact with you. But like, then in essence, and I don't want to label shit and use typical names here, but you want to live in a society where in every grocery store, whatever, that section exists, where the government food section, where that's free, anybody can avail themselves of it.
And as a project, let me give you the kind of production side of it. I would love for there to be national service. That's not military-based national service, but national service in take our seniors in high school who are usually kind of checked out by senior year anyways. Give them a year where they can choose, hey, I want to be in ag, I want to be in energy, or I want to be in housing, you know, and let them be a part of that. Yeah, go ahead.
Stop the presses. You and I could end our show right now because this libertarian fucking agrees with you, Mr. Socialist. If I were king of America, absolutely mandatory 1 year service after high school.
It'd be great.
And I know it goes against every ounce of my philosophy, but
there's already mandatory education. We already have mandatory education. Why not just frame this as mandatory education? How much better would we be if our kids knew how our systems worked?
Now, I guarantee you, most people who generally are going to listen to us every week are going to agree more with you because they come more from that perspective. I want to make this. I want to make this point. Both Xander and I want America to have the best schools. Both Xander and I want every American to be stable so they can participate. Neither Xander or I want America to be hungry, homeless, all of that. Xander and I spend time then deciding, in essence, what role should government play to help us get there? That's the rub. That's where you put you and me in a room. Our end goals are the same, but we got this thing called government. It's got to play a role. You and I will You and I will roll up our sleeves and debate how big that role is.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll say a couple things on that front. My goal in these is not to fucking persuade you to do anything. This is a whole you represent one branch of thinking, I represent another. If we go both, that's a pretty good idea. That's interesting. That could help in the future. It's just it's an interesting exploration for me. And I'll say, Joe, when I had less friends across the political spectrum, I didn't believe you existed. I didn't believe an earnest libertarian free market person existed. I thought it was a front for the Kochs and their buddies to continue making money, and they kept supporting more politicians. Partially, it's a generational thing, though. I didn't grow up in the Red Scare era either, right? Yeah. I didn't grow up in this communist first capitalism, so I'm not polarized in ways. I think guys who grew up in your ways and saw America winning during that period with that, with that thesis, or at least that was the narrative. That's why they were winning. And that's really, we just have different backgrounds,
and that's really cool, and that's a great contextual point. And look, my libertarian philosophy, I'm no do-gooder, has driven me. I was a social worker. I was a teacher. I ran nonprofits because philosophically, it was up to me in the private sector to take care of those less fortunate than me. Now, that may be a flawed philosophy, but I've tried to live that. I don't want government to do it, so I'm going to be a social worker. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to start a nonprofit to help make sure every kid's educated. I wish more of us did that. I wish more of our private sector charities and churches and every institution did more. We've lost a lot of that.
It's interesting. I'm in Portland now, and Portland has like some mix of this. It's certainly not perfect, but they do their social programs through contracting with nonprofits, and they have like these competitive bids. It's not nearly as tethered to KPIs as I would like to see it. It's not nearly as competitive as you would like to see it, but it was interesting. They have adopted this hybrid model where it's not, a central government saying, okay, we're just going to execute on this program. There is a bidding process. There's several competitive nonprofits in kind of the best cases that are making the case for why they can deliver, against their KPIs better, et cetera. And so there certainly are hybrid models. They're really interesting. But I want to go to this national service thing because I didn't realize we agreed on this. I think oftentimes when I hear about national service, they talk about kind of the value for the kids, which is great. I think it's massively valuable. I think it'll help us come together more if you're moving around the country a little bit, being with people outside of your culture. But we don't talk about the output, which I think could be this baseline level of stability, that'll make us resilient moving into the future. And I think we can stretch that across housing and energy, as well as food as a starting point. Yeah. That's kind of my baseline thinking. Tell me your version of national service and why you're so excited by it.
I think young people need their asses kicked after high school. I think young people are utterly ignorant of the world, the country and the world around them. So I think a year of service would do wonders for them. not even getting into the output, which is huge.
Yeah.
And again, I'm a libertarian, but I'm going to use this word, the collective, the community. I don't believe in a forced collective. I don't believe in a forced community, but we've lost our sense of
Totally.
community in this country. I'm individualism is my God. I think, Xander, I think during COVID, I got a lot of shit from both sides during COVID because I felt like a private business could do whatever they want. If they demanded their employees be masked, they had to be masked. Nobody could come into my restaurant unless you were masked, whatever. The private business should dictate. I don't want government mandating all this shit. But then out of the other side of my mouth, I would say to my friends on the right, come on, we're all fucking in this thing together. This is a once in a lifetime health crisis. Suck it up, man. Put the fucking mask on. Take care of your fellow American. No, I don't want government forcing you to take care of your fellow American, but damn it, do the right thing. We're at war in this country. So like my libertarian friends have lost all sense of we're all in this together. And I really felt that during COVID when I got so much flack from them on the right. Joe, nobody can force me to wear a mask. All right, jackass, why don't you do it? Because it's the right thing to do.
It's funny, this is so fun. We're going so many places in this conversation. The national service thing's interesting, but you just got to there's roots and roots. You talked about the things we need to do to bring us together. And I think about this a lot right now as we see kind of Republicans refuse to be a check on the president, as I see, the Voting Rights Act be destroyed. Now gerrymandering is essentially legal again. We've got to want to co-govern, right? Like to a certain extent, like for a democracy to function, we've got to want to co-govern. It can't be this competition where it's just one side assumes power over the other and then gets their way. And then in 4 years, everything changes again. For a country, a democracy to be functional, you have to want to co-govern. And I think to the point you're getting at, we don't necessarily want to be in the same boat with each other now, or at least large swaths of us do not. And we need projects that can, if we want to continue on, if we need projects to help us feel like we do, or to help us want to.
You know this, our listeners don't. Thursday late morning, I got in my car with my 2 dogs in Washington, D.C., and I drove across the country. And late Monday, I arrived in very Northern California. And Xander, along the way, I had plenty of stops and I talked to plenty of people. And by the way, I'm doing this conversations tour where I'm putting people in rooms who disagree. That's part of why I'm on the road. But I got to tell you something, Xander, traveling this country for the past 4 to 5 days and talking to Americans in the backwoods, in the country, in the city, I don't think there's something that still binds us. And I don't want to start something today, but I don't. Everybody says, oh, Joe, right? Xander, come on. Real America is not social media. Real America is not cable news. Well, I've spent a lot of time in real America, especially the last 4 to 5 days. And I really worry that we're not all bound by something. Where are you on that?
Modernity is incredibly isolating. I say that as I talk to you from my, bedroom over here, right? When you're in your room, whatever room that is over there, it is very easy. I remember, let me look this up actually. There's some statistics on the amount of friends that the average American has that they feel like has it's incredible. Like it's like 40% don't believe they have one person that would support them.
And then Xander, you've seen that chart. I put it out last week. The amount of time Americans spend with friends as they age and family members. Most Americans spend the vast majority of their time alone as they age. It's frightening.
Yeah. And so I think in that kind of structure, and look, I grew up on an Olympic training center, right? We were all in it together. It was me, my father was an Olympic wrestler, my uncle was an Olympic wrestler, and it was then a bunch of families on the same journey. And so I remember after my father was killed, we moved to the Bay Area. I was surprised at how lonely like just regular suburban life in America was, because we were essentially on a commune. You know, we didn't really live in America in that sense, in that traditional sense. And so I think sometimes we attribute to ideology what really can be attributed to a sense of isolation and a lack of purpose. I also think there's a great deal of kind of purpose for a lot of people in their careers that feels emptier than it used to be, or at least like less guaranteed than it used to be. There's not a lot of guys getting like gold Rolexes at the end of like a 30-year run, you know, with the same group of people anymore.
I've never asked you this. I led with my card. What's your highest value in this life? I value individual freedom by far more than any other value. And I don't want it to be a postcard answer, Xander, but that's my postcard answer. In your level of values, what do you value most?
Oh, it's really sad. I just want people to be free like me. I feel free. You know, it's funny we both say that, although my idea of freedom is probably that positive freedom we talked about.
Yes,
it's like being buoyed by a certain level of assurances. I think I can take a lot of risks that people can't. And that allows me to try things and fail at things and then try new things. And that's been great. I'm able to kind of reskill and retrain. And I think if you look at a lot of the people that we appreciate in history that have moved us forward in whatever way, you don't see someone grinding it out 40 hours a week for 50 years. You see Ben Franklin like charting the currents and then going and hanging out in Paris for 2 years and then coming back and, you know, being a framer around our democracy. And then, you know, coming back, you know, taking a break from that. And then he invents bifocals. It's funny. I was at Ben Franklin's museum and he didn't have glasses on in his early painting. I was like, oh, he wasn't wearing glasses here. And he fucking invented glasses. The guy did so much. And I think you actually see it even in Silicon Valley. Like, look, Elon Musk has turned into like the dark Sith Lord. But prior to that, the guy would make something, take a break, think about it, you know, and got real obsessed with solving the climate problem, you know, and helped create a number of companies that did that. And then, you know, would take a break and came back and started thinking about space travel. And I don't say that to say that is like the definition of an honorific life or not, but I think there's a false idea of what helps people be productive. And we right now, this like idea of productivity in America is you're at the end of a gun of poverty. And like, that's the way to motivate you into action. And I think history, when we look at the people that we want to replicate and recreate, I think of government much more hands-on than you do. I think of it as like almost an assembly line. Think of a Ford assembly line of like, what kind of people are we trying to create? It takes a lot of investment and opportunity and the feeling of safety and stability to be able to be participants in those ways. So I guess that's my answer.
Do you acknowledge that in a free society we'll always have poverty? In a free capitalist society? No,
I think we can. I agree with you. It's funny enough. I agree with you that inequality is a silly goal. I think there should be a cap to people's coercive ability. Like if they have so much more than everyone else, it's easy to kind of like buy your way to warping society. And maybe we'll disagree there, but I don't think inequality is the goal. I think you can eradicate desperation. We'll probably keep redefining poverty and what it is, but I think you can eradicate for the most part desperation and instability with relatively modest government investments in guaranteed housing and food and whatnot. And so you don't need to recreate financial wealth, but I think we could quickly get to a place where there is not a fear of death or suffering via poverty. That's totally possible to eradicate.
And I love the way you phrased that. Did you say eradicate desperation? How did you phrase that?
Yeah. Eradicate. Oh, did I lose Joe? I was getting him too close to socialism. He had to get himself out of here. Let me see if I can find him again. Let me move him and add him back. There we go. You're back. You're back. You're back.
I love that phrase. And that's really cool. And I'm intrigued. This is why this is such a cool conversation. I'm intrigued by that. I want to explore that in future conversations. The other thing you said was you're left, I'm right, labels. Income inequality, maybe for very different reasons, is not the be all end all for either one of us. The final thing I forgot to tell you, why I love the notion of national service mandatory. Fuck college. We are 30 years beyond this point. We're late to the game. We got to start. Not everybody has to go to fucking 4-year college. Get off of this thing. Get off of this thing now. Anything to help this country get off of this notion that everybody's got to go to a 4-year college. That day is done.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I would love, look, I genuinely mean it. It can be a great investment all the way around. Like, it'd be great for kids to learn all these skills as a democracy. It'd be great. Like, to be honest, Joe, I don't really know how our food system works. Like, I haven't been on too many farms. I don't know how our waste system works in time. I know, like, if you asked me to explain it, maybe I could explain it at a very high level, but that's very different than spending 3 months in service, like working in it, seeing it, et cetera. And I think we could be, as part of that service, automating a lot of these systems too. It'd be great to need less and less of that national service group to be working on that. We can move on to other things. So go ahead.
So I've got to hop in a minute. What I'd love to do at the end of each one of our shows is give one final thought. I'm going to give mine, then I want you to give yours. Xander, I fucking love these conversations. Here's my final thought. And to everybody listening to us, thank you for listening. Subscribe to Social Contract with Joe Walsh. Subscribe to defiance.org. Do it, whatever. I do a lot of TV, and I sit in a lot of TV studios, and I do a lot of these panel fucking shows. It is the antithesis. Every time I'm on CNN or MS Now, Xander, it's the antithesis of what you and I are doing right now.
Yeah, totally.
You and I are fucking having a conversation. That doesn't happen on TV. So I hope people appreciate this. This is really good stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny, my friends, and it's creating this like vicious cycle of people not wanting to get civically engaged. I have so many friends. I didn't, like I said, I didn't go to an Ivy League school or anything like that. Most of my buddies are working regular jobs that I grew up with, and they don't get politically engaged. And I ask them why, and I can tell it's because their idea of civic engagement is like folks fighting on CNN. Yeah. They think that's what happens when you like go to like an indivisible group meeting, is it's everyone like throwing shit at each other and like dissing each other and creating sound bites and whatnot. And so, and you feel the opposite when you get involved in this work. Like, there's so many incredible people, so many different perspectives, so much wonderful workshopping, so much progress. You see the wins everywhere. Yeah. I know the news talks about the losses and the volatile things. And so there's so many, especially when you look at the local government, so many awesome things happening across the country. I think it's been destructive to so many of my friends' desire to even want to get engaged, because it feels like a food fight. They're like, I don't want to be over there.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Cool, brother. I'll let you run. So nice seeing you.
Has been a blast.
I'll see you next Tuesday.
You, everybody. Next Tuesday, guys. Thanks, everybody.
This Tuesday. Let's make it happen. Later, brother.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, follow, and share The Social Contract with Joe Walsh on Apple, Spotify. Plus, don't forget to subscribe to The Social Contract on Substack. This has been The Social Contract with Joe Walsh.